the best sound tool you have is the one you've got on you.
So I think that you need a digital audio workstation or DAW that you are comfortable in. And there's a lot. And I got some really great advice from somebody early on who said, use the one that you're fast in and that you like. Because really they all put out audio. You might reach a point where you're gunning for a job or get a job with a studio who use a specific one. And, you should probably kind of have an understanding of it. But I think being competent in any DAW and getting quick and good in it means you'll transfer to another one way quicker. And I've had many, I think learning software is actually a really big part of this skill set and this job, and kind of like probably a long-term career. Things change really fast. And I quite like just sort of throwing myself into a new engine. Like I spent the first part of my career only in Unity, and I'd sort of knew what Unreal did and how it worked, but I hadn't been in there. And I was, I guess, I was happy to see that people were really open to me saying, look, I don't really know this engine, but I've spent 9 years in Unity. It's not going to be that hard,
My DAW choice is Reaper. I've tried a few, I've used a few, but I've landed on Reaper. And I think a lot of the sound designers in the games industry do use that for reasons of speed. I 100% agree with what Ali's saying. Learn one and choose whichever you're quickest at. If you're looking at in-house positions, it would be beneficial to try Reaper out and at least be familiar with it and comfortable. And then in terms of audio middleware, I've been using Audio Kinetics Wise quite a lot in the last few projects, but I have used proprietary solutions as well. What's important is that you learn the fundamentals and why things are behaving a certain way and what they're actually doing. And when you have that down, you can then apply that to anything that comes your way, because fundamentally they're all doing the same thing. They're all making a game, and sound will all need to be implemented at some point. And it's just learning the basics of that, and then the software, and when they combine, you can pick things up very quickly.
I have been a Pro Tools user for 20 years because that was what I learned on. And like Ali said, I was given the advice of, stay with what you know really well. I've also used Reaper for about 14 years, I think. The most important thing overall is spreadsheets. Really get really comfortable with spreadsheets, because you're going to spend a lot of time with them. Ooh. But I would say really get your head around spreadsheets, and just the idea of how they export and import, how they interface with the whatever audio tools, whatever engine the outsourcers you're working with. One of the things that I would really actually, which isn't an audio tool, is that I would say if you are working with dialogue with games and you plan to, I would say looking at narrative design tools and game writing tools can be really useful as well. Game script tools and what people use for that, I think can be really useful for anybody going into dialogue for games, to really understand how scripts are put together and how they're generated and how that kind of part of the system works.
Well, I think in terms of, I think it's the amount of sound that's there, from the ambient environments to the feedback when if you're playing a shooter game, there's tons of feedback, and there's tons of kind of very dynamic and responsive audio that's responded to your gameplay, the gameplay and your actions on screen, and how much of that is feedback. And a lot, if that's working well, you might not actually notice it, but you're subconsciously kind of interpreting that. So for example, in a racing game, you might start hearing, after you bash your car about a bit, you might start hearing things rattle. Now, there's nothing on the screen that's telling you, be careful, this car's about to die. But you got the subconscious kind of feedback coming in there. A lot of our work is feedback, but also setting tone and environment and vibe, really. And a lot of that goes on without being particularly in your face and particularly kind of immediately aware to the player until they start to think about it. But there's a lot going on in the background that kind of enhances and embellishes the gameplay on screen.
misconceptions that people have about voice directors is that it's not a job in itself, particularly in the games industry. It's just something that other people do. So, and in a way that does happen a lot. You know, a lot of writers direct, a lot of narrative designers also direct, a lot of sound designers also direct, depending on what the role is. So I think there's a preconception that anyone can kind of do it. It's just telling actors what to say, after all, isn't it? So it's a and I think there's a real what people don't realize is how much thought and time goes into preparing a script and breaking down characters and understanding what's needed from the game, and not just rocking up into the session and talking to the actors and getting them to say stuff in a cool way, but actually being able to guide an actor through a script.
I think a couple of things. One of them is the amount of library material that someone like me would use. So I think when I talk to a lot of people who are new, they ask me, do you record everything that you make? And I wish is the true answer, you know? And it seems like I kind of didn't realize perhaps that was like under the rug or something, because yeah, I know of AAA studios who record absolutely literally every single thing that goes into their game, but that is a huge undertaking. But the reality is that a lot of it is me going to amazing indie library marketplaces and spending 20, 30, 100 maybe on a really big library, you know, like not crazy money, and just slowly building up a big resource. And then the creative task is somewhat akin to editing or selecting, like, you know, it's really going through and having a vision and like using the tools that you have to enable your vision. I think there's a simple way of framing this for me, which is to put the player at the core of it. So really, you know, you're making an experience for the end user, gross, but the player, you know, and so you really want to think about how it is for them and what their experience is, and that just really helps me to frame kind of everything that I do. So if I'm stuck, so one of the like tangible ways that affects things is I will often start with some of the sounds that happen the most, and they may not be the most important sounds. In fact, in most cases, they're footsteps, and they are not important, but they happen the whole time. So you really want to make sure that you get that kind of thing right for the player, because otherwise it's just super annoying for everybody and they'll put your game down, or worse, turn the sound off. So maybe the other way around, maybe them turning it off is worse. And there's a really great Sid Meier quote, who's the designer behind Civilization series. And he said, he was talking about design, but he said, who's having fun here? Is it the player or the programmer? And like, I just try to think that, you know, like the amount of times that I want to do something that just feels really cool and fun and expensive, but like, is it really going to change the player's experience? If not, then I probably shouldn't do it.
I would say what's most useful to me when somebody's giving feedback on my audio is to try and avoid emotive terms like that was bad or that was good, because they don't mean anything to us. If people are giving feedback on something they want to change, it's because it's not doing something for them. It's not making them feel something, or there's something functional it's not doing. So that's what I want to know. I want to know why it's not working for you. Is it because you want the player to feel something different at this point, you feel that's not there? Or is it because functionally that it's not doing the job it should? If at all possible, listen to it together, so you can actually sit there together and then go, is that the bit? They can go, this at this bit, this moment here, do a playthrough together, or watch the capture together. At this bit here, I don't, it should be this, and it's not. Because it's really irritating to just kind of get a note saying this doesn't work, and you're like, what doesn't work? Which bit of this whole sonic landscape doesn't work for you?
I really like Matteo Cellotto. I probably spelled his name wrong. He is a London indie he's a London indie designer, and there's just some incredible ones. If you look up
a sound
Polarity
by
Matteo Cellotto, that is just, it's got so many freebie goodies in it.
If you're starting out, Go on websites like A Sound Effect, go on Boom Library, go on Pro Sound Effects, go on Sonis, sign up to their mailing lists every month. Pretty much, they'll send you free sounds. And if you're just starting out, sound libraries are very expensive. So just, or can be very expensive, sorry. So just get some free sounds. It'll be a decent amount to start a lot of people off.
The best sound tool you have is the one you've got on you. So if you have your phone on you and you hear a cool sound, record it with your phone. That's the one that's got on you. But I mean, you don't need a lot of expensive kit to start off with. Like a really, there's the Zoom recorders are really good to start off with. You can go up, you can buy a Zoom H8, which is great. But if you wanted something that's slightly cheaper, maybe a Zoom H4. I still use my Zoom H4 on quite a lot of stuff, especially capturing initial sounds, because it's very straightforward to use. If you want to go slightly more expensive, but not on the total end, Sound Devices Mix Pre's are very good. The Sound Devices Mix Pre, I think, the Mix Pre 3 is about sort of 400 or 500 quid. If you want to go up that far. And like a Sennheiser MKH 416, just a shotgun mic. 416 is a fairly standard, but there's loads of others out there. There's the Rhodes, which I can't remember. Just simple shotgun mic, a decent recorder will do you as a starting to go off and do things. But really, whatever you can afford.
Yeah, Zoom make fantastic budget stuff, and Rode makes definitely echo that. And don't be afraid to look on the used market, because audio equipment is generally quite well looked after.